Welcome to Literacy Adventures with Ali. I hope you have been enjoying all of our adventures on my channel. In today's adventure, we are going to address something very important that a lot of even fluent English language speakers often stumble and make mistakes with. The topic that we are going to talk about in today's adventure is subject-verb agreement. A lot of people make mistakes. They forget that the subject and the verb must agree grammatically in a sentence. So in today's video, I'm not going to address the general subject-verb agreement, which everyone is aware of. In fact, I'm only going to address those confusing cases of subject-verb agreement, which a lot of people get confused about. So I hope that you enjoy today's adventure and that you will join me in all of my future adventures as well. Thank you and happy learning.
A lot of people get confused whether they should use I or me in a sentence. So take a look at this example. Jim and I or Jim and me. Which one do you think is correct? The answer to that is that both are correct, but it depends on the situation and in which sense you are using it. For example, I is a subject pronoun and me is an object pronoun. Remember, subject is the one who is doing the action in a sentence, whereas object is the one who is receiving the action. And since an object is receiving an action, and action words are known as verbs, there must come a verb before the object pronoun. Therefore, when we are using Jim and I is a subject, so it will be doing the action. So Jim and I went to the cinema last night. So went is the action that they are doing, but since Jim and I are both doing the actions, we are the subjects. So subject will come first. The second case is please teach French to Jim and me. So here Jim and me are objects because we are receiving an action that someone else is doing. So we are asking and requesting someone else to do an action which is teaching French to us. So Jim and me will be objects, which is why they will come later on in the sentence instead of at the beginning. Another question that I often get asked is with if conditionals, whether we should use I was or I were. With I, should we use was or should we use were is a question that we all get confused between. The answer is very simple. When using if and with if we are using I, remember with I, was is used when the situation is real in the past tense and were is used when the situation is hypothetical. Hypothetical means when a situation is not real and it's made up or imaginary. Let's take a look at the examples. I would have eaten the pizza if I was hungry. So here I'm going to use was with I in a sentence with if. Why am I using was? Because I am not imagining, I'm not creating a situation hypothetically, I'm just stating a fact that in the past I would have eaten the pizza if I was hungry. But I was not hungry, so I didn't eat it. There's nothing imaginary about it. On the other hand, I would have fixed your car within minutes if I were a mechanic. So I am not a mechanic, but if I were, hypothetically speaking, just imagining for a minute, if I were, I would have fixed it within minutes. So remember the difference between if I was and if I were, and when to use was and when to use were. If the situation is real, then we use was in the past tense. If a situation is hypothetical, we use were. Another thing that many people often get confused between is the use of will and shall in a sentence. Just remember that according to proper British English, shall is supposed to be used with I and we, and will is supposed to be used with the remaining pronouns and subjects you, he, she, it, and they. So with I and we use shall. However, in modern English, shall has been replaced with will for the most part, thanks to the Americans, and shall is also used to give commands and ask polite questions. So, for example, you shall not move from this chair until you complete your work. Or, shall we dance? So, in commands and questions, it is still very much in use, but for the other remaining parts, I think it has been replaced by will for the most part. The negative of shall is shall not, which is contracted as shan't, which is not often used anymore, and the past tense of shall is should. Should is also used as a modal verb for expressing duty, obligation, correctness, and probability. For example, we should respect our elders. Now let's talk about some confusing cases of subject-verb agreement. We all know that this is a table is a correct sentence, and we should not say this are a table. That is wrong grammar. So the subject must agree with the verb. However, there are many confusing cases in the English language where the subject and the verb are so confusing that we don't know which verb to use with the subject. So let's explore and find out how to make sure that the subject and the verb always agree with each other in some confusing situations. The first case is when plural common nouns are treated as singular things. For example, $7,000 is a lot of money for this bag. Now, I'm talking about plural dollars, $7,000, not $1. But even with plural dollars, I am using the verb is. Why? Because I'm treating all of those $7,000 as one amount. Similarly, 2 liters, not one, 2 liters plural is, not are. Is a lot of water to drink in a day, because here I'm treating 2 liters as one quantity. The next case is when plural proper nouns are treated as singular things. For example, the Philippines lies along the western Pacific rim. The Philippines is an archipelago of islands. It's a cluster of islands, thousands of islands that when they gather together, they make one country, which is why we call it the Philippines. Although it's plural, we are not going to use the singular form of the verb. We are not going to say lie. We are going to say lies because we are treating the Philippines as one country. Borders is a popular bookstore, although it's the plural of the word border and it's called borders. Remember, that is actually a proper noun. It's the name of a bookshop and a cafe. So we are going to treat it as one. Borders is a popular bookstore, not borders are. The third case is when pairs of things or collective nouns are treated as one entity. For example, a pair of scissors, because we are talking about one pair and we are writing a pair, we are going to write is. Despite the fact that scissors is plural, but we are talking about one pair of scissors. So we are going to say a pair of scissors is lying on the table. On the other hand, if I do not write the word a pair and I only write the plural form scissors, then we are going to use the verb are with scissors. And the sentence will be, the scissors are lying on the table. Similarly, the team of players, we are talking about one team here, a single team. The team of players was greeted by the locals. However, if I remove the term the team, then I'm only talking about plural players. So I will say the players were greeted by the locals and not was. The fourth case is when plural subjects are treated as singular. For example, lemonade with ice and mint is a refreshing drink. Although I'm talking about lemonade with ice and mint, there's and, so we're definitely talking about two things. But here, lemonade with ice and mint is highlighted in bold because it is the name of one drink in the menu. So, lemonade with ice and mint is a refreshing drink. War and Peace is a good book written by Leo Tolstoy. Although we are talking about war and peace, two different things, but it is the name of one book written by Leo Tolstoy. So, which is why we are going to refer to it as is. Fish and chips is a traditional British meal, not are a traditional meal, because we are not treating fish separately and chips separately. We are not talking about two things. This is the name of one dish, fish and chips. That's the name of one single dish, which is why we are going to say is a traditional British meal. The fifth case is when we use the words one of. For example, one of my friends. The word friends is plural of friend. Even despite that, we are using the verb is here with friends. We're not saying are. Why? Because I am talking about one of my many friends. So since I'm talking about one, the verb will be is. One of my friends is an engineer. One of the restaurants is run by Bob. The sixth confusing case is where the plural and the singular clash with one another. For example, the thing that I like most about the holidays is having no schedule. Although the word holidays is plural, we are still using a singular verb with it, which is is. Why are we doing so? Because we are talking about one thing that we like most about the holidays. So the focus here is on that one thing. And since it's one thing, we are going to write is as the verb. Take a look at the rest of the examples. The best thing that I like about t-shirts is how comfortable they are. One best thing. The most comfortable chair out of all the chairs in this room is the red one. There are many chairs in the room, but I'm talking about the one singular most comfortable chair, which is why I'm using the verb is. The wallet full of notes was found. There were many notes in it, but our focus is on that one single wallet that was found, which is why we are going to write was, not were. The seventh case is where singular nouns end in an S already. For example, the news. The news is known as the news. There is no singular, there is no plural for it. News is news. It already ends with an S. So the news about Jane is good. Although news is ending with an S, we are still going to use is, not are. Economics, just one word, already ends with an S, is my favorite subject, not are, although there is an S. Aerobics is a good form of sports. Although it ends with an S, we are going to use is with it, not are. The eighth confusing case is where nouns that have the same singular and the same plural form. For example, The deer was grazing in the field and the deer were grazing in the field. Both are correct. When will we use the deer was grazing? If we are talking about one single deer, because the plural of deer is also deer. So, how will the reader find out whether we are talking about one deer or multiple deer? They'll find out because we will use was if we are talking about one deer in the past tense and were if we are using and talking about multiple deer in the past tense. The ninth and the last confusing subject verb agreement case is when subjects are joined by or nor. For example, neither my mom nor my dad is going to the ceremony. So, although we are talking about two people, but we are going to use the verb is here because we are treating neither mom as a separate entity and nor my dad as a separate entity. So, we are going to use is here, not are. Neither my parents nor my friends are going to the ceremony. Now, here we are going to use are and not is. Reason being because here both the entities are plural. Parents is plural and friends is plural. So we are going to use are even if we treat them as separate entities, they are still plural. Thank you for joining me in today's adventure. If you liked this video, then please subscribe and like and hit the notification bell. If you want to know more about me, then please check out my bio in the About section of my channel. If you want to contact me for conducting training sessions, then please send me an email at the email address shown on the screen.